I was away on vacation with my family. When I returned to my apartment, the door was open. It was like in a movie, when the main character goes to open the door and realises it's already open. My first thought is, please let this mean that I forgot to lock my door. I turn on the light, I start cursing because I immediately see that all of my movies and video games have been stolen. This doesn't sound like much, but I did have a pretty expensive collection, valued at around $5,000. It hurt when I came to this realisation because I'd never placed a monetary value on my collection. I called the police and there was not much they could do. The thief or thieves even stole my pocket change and my dead grandfather's watch. The most bizarre thing about it was the fact that they left many of my valuable items. They left electronics, memorabilia and art, but all they took were items that they could easily pawn off. A week later, I actually found one of my old games at a GameStop. The receipt with my name on it was still in the case. The experience had a profound impact on me. I sold my Xbox and haven't played video games since. I just can't justify the money anymore. In the next few months after the incident, I never left valuable items in my apartment. I always carried around my laptop, hard drives, and anything that had value to me. I already had a safe before the incident, another item with priceless items that they left, and felt comfortable leaving that at home. I stopped sleeping in my apartment when the semester started up. This happened during the summer. I spent most of my time at my girlfriend's and actually left many of my valuables at her apartment. What struck me most is how important it is to feel safe in your own home, and how quickly I lost that feeling. My apartment was scary and I felt stripped of my privacy. It took me a while to recover, and moving away from my apartment definitely helped. It is something that I don't think I'll fully recover from. It changed the way I value my possessions. I'm more paranoid about doors, windows, locks, and things that I used to take for granted. My mum had recently been making a lot of brownies. On this day, she made a particular batch that was greater than any of the brownies she'd made before. We ate a few, but for some reason didn't finish them, and we left them out on the kitchen stove. My mum, my sister and I all went to sleep later that night while my dad was out at a meeting. My mum, knowing my dad would be home in just a few minutes, didn't think she needed to lock the doors before she went to sleep. Now we're all asleep, and my dad pulls into the driveway. The first thing he notices is that our garage is open, and his bike is standing outside. Then he turns and looks into the house. Standing in our kitchen is a man. My dad doesn't realise what's going on. At first he assumes that one of his friends had come over, wanting to borrow his bike, but was waiting for him to come home so he could ask him. Then the man inside our house sprints out the back door. My dad starts to chase him, but stops. He knows we're inside and he wants to make sure we're okay. So now we're all gathered downstairs and we notice something. The intruder walked into our house and the first thing he would have seen is the kitchen table. On the kitchen table were 3 wallets, all untouched. Then we look over and see the plate of brownies, completely destroyed. The man who had broken into our house skipped over our valuables and went straight for the brownies. At the time I was more disappointed by the fact that we didn't get to finish them than scared that we'd kind of been robbed. Obviously my mum and dad were pretty freaked out, and they bought an alarm system for the house, and my dad didn't sleep for a few days. But other than that, the only thing we lost were some brownies. When I was about 4, we were broken into twice. The first time, my grandfather and mum had been out grocery shopping. We arrived home and locked the front door, and one of the bedroom doors up the passageway slammed shut from the change in air pressure. My grandfather must have sensed something was up and ran up the passageway to the bathroom. The window was open, curtains swinging in the breeze, and nobody to be found. They figured he mustn't have been there long before they arrived home, as nothing in the house was touched or taken. The second time was 3 months later. My mum woke up to someone sitting on the bed with a knife in his hand at 3 AM. Mum says she froze, couldn't talk, couldn't move. She was completely petrified. She said he was mumbling, but she couldn't make out what he was saying. Then her next door neighbour's dog barked and he just stood up and walked out. She heard the back sliding door open, and a minute or so later, the line of light shining through the curtains from the street light was blanked out. She grabbed the phone and called my grandfather. All she said was there was someone in the house. He lived about 5 minutes away with her 3 younger teenage brothers. In less than 5 minutes, they pulled in the driveway and scattered around the house, all barefoot, wearing only their underwear. Every single door was unlocked, and the back door was open. Nobody to be seen. Mum was a complete mess. There were big muddy footprints in the laundry under the little window she left open for the cat. It took a few days for all the weird things this creep had done to be discovered. He had shredded a black negligee that was in the laundry basket, fed the cat and poured her a bowl of milk, poured a whiskey out of the decanter in the living room and added ice and coke to it, somehow had injected solder into the eggs in the fridge, ate the leftover roast meat out of the fridge, cut up some cattle that were sitting on the bench, took a photo of the stovetop and another one of me sleeping on my mum's camera, and left it sitting next to my bed. Tipped salt into mum's shoes. The knife was out of mum's block in the kitchen and they never found it. Just really, really weird shit. The cops came and got plenty of fingerprints, but whoever it was didn't have a record. The consensus eventually, a couple of years later, was that it was an acquaintance of one of her brothers. It was a bit of a Chinese whispers conclusion though. He said X and Y to person A, who told person B, etc, etc. And it got back to mum's brother. He was eventually locked up on some sort of psychiatric hold for something unrelated and was never charged with the break-in. It messed up my mum for many years. My stepdad had a monitored alarm system installed when they got together, which somewhat helped her fears. A few years back I rented an apartment from a friend of mine. He had recently bought it and had it completely renovated. He put it up for sale but couldn't find a buyer, so I offered to rent it in the meantime. After moving in, I realised there was something wrong with the lady next door. She was about 45 but looked much older. She would sit up all night listening to Christian radio shows and talking loudly to someone. It got to the point where I couldn't sleep, so I went over to her place and asked her to keep it down. She opened her door and I got a quick peek. Her walls odd crosses painted on them in different colours, and words like Jesus and angels scribbled everywhere. The windows were painted black, letting no light in at all. It was damp, yellow-stained 50-year-old carpets, dog shit and cockroaches everywhere. No dog though. I asked her to please keep it down. She just looked at me and shut the door. Then she turned up the radio even louder. The next night I had my girlfriend staying over. I wake up in the middle of the night and see a shadow of a person next to the bed looking at us sleeping. I think I'm hallucinating, as I usually do in the dark when I'm sleepy. But then the shadow starts talking. It's my neighbour and she's holding something in her hand. She broke in during the night and who knows how long she stood there. "You should lock your door at night," she says, and walks out. The next thing I hear someone making strange noises below my bedroom window. It's my neighbour talking to herself in tongue. She has a plastic bag in her hand with her rotting dead dog inside. It's hot as hell outside and I can smell death from the bag. At this point I'm scared shitless. She's obviously very insane. I go upstairs and knock on another person's door and ask what the hell's going on. The guy is just as scared as I am. Apparently she broke into his apartment one evening as well while he was watching TV with his kids. He got up from the couch to get a snack, only to find her behind the couch staring at him holding a power drill. Now I know what was in her hand. At this stage I'm basically pooping myself. I call the cops and they know all about her. Apparently she's a violent schizophrenic and she hasn't taken her meds, but they can't force her or enter her apartment without her permission because she owns it. The only thing they can do is get her when she goes outside. I set up for the next 2 days waiting for her to run out of cigarettes. When I hear her leave at 2 AM to go across the road to the 7-Eleven, I call the cops. They have 3 cars and a special van over in less than 2 minutes. They restrain her and throw her in the van and drive off to some institution in less than a minute. It's like she was never there. I never see her again. Still have nightmares about her looking at me in my sleep. It happened when I was around 10 or so. At the time, my dad's job was pretty far away, so he would stay at his father's house during the week and only come home on the weekends. So, it was just my mum and brother and me. We were getting home around 4 PM that day. She'd substitute teached at one of the schools and was bringing us home. Now, we lived out in the middle of nowhere and crime wasn't something we ever thought about, so my parents never locked the doors to the house. This made breaking in quite easy for the burglar. When we arrived home that day, the house was a mess and many things of value, such as the TV, VCR, etc. had been taken. My mum also used a metal cash box as a box to store all of her coupons, and apparently they thought it actually had cash and had pried it open, which is weird because she didn't even lock it. The cops took freaking forever to get there, like 3 hours, which in hindsight is kind of bullshit because I guarantee you they had nothing else going on. Anyway, because of that event and my dad being away, my mom and I were super scared. The police even said they might return, as we were an easy target, which did not make things any easier. I slept in her bed for a few days as it made me feel safer. That event forever changed how safe I felt. Ever since then, I make sure my doors are always locked. This is true for both my car and my house. Maybe much less trusting in general. That feeling has never gone away. You feel violated in a really icky way.